William, hopefully your favorite videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I welcome you to International Women's Day, Texas Women Inspiring Change. This happened on March 8, 2014, and I can still hear the echoes.
Good afternoon and welcome everyone. Yay! Huge applause for such a great attendance. All right, my name is Mia Dia. I am the moderator for the event along with Rosemarie Rieger today. I am also a civil engineer. I'm a sister and a daughter. I believe my mom is right here in the crowd. She's hiding. Really proud of my mom because she raised 3 kids by herself after my dad passed away when we were children, teenagers, children, you name it. And she moved from Jordan all the way to Texas by herself with 3 kids. And all of her kids are engineers right now. Proud of you, Mom. All right, we are delighted and excited to have you here to celebrate International Women's Day with us, presented by Women's Alliance for Leadership, North Texas Jobs with Justice, and AFL-CIO. Thank you for hosting this event. The theme for this year is Texas Women Inspiring Change. Yay, Texas women! Thank you all for coming, and to those that I know who traveled long distances from Fort Worth, from North Texas, from Austin, Denton, we really appreciate you, and this just serves as a reminder that how important our work is here and how it's just beautiful and amazing to come together as one community. So we really appreciate it. Thank you for coming. The attendance exceeded our expectations for this event. It's amazing how much social media and the connections and the organizations, so many, as you can see with all the organizations in the back, so many came up to us, were interested and very excited, and so we are overwhelmed, and thank you for making all this happen. So we really appreciate it. Let me share a quick story with you. So I woke up one day in January and I was like, you know what? I think we should organize something for March this year. It's 2014. It's Texas Women's Year. Let's make it happen, right? I sent a Facebook message to community organizers, ones that I know, and I said, hey, you know, let's do something. Let's meet and let's brainstorm, whatever comes up, we'll do it. And Rosemarie Rieger responds and says, absolutely, let's do it. We met in end of January and we decided on dates and all that stuff. And then we started outreaching for organizations and other community organizers that would love to volunteer and help us out with this large, important event. And it worked out. We were overwhelmed with the interest from all the volunteers. You can see their names on the brochures, helped organize this event. And we really put it together in less than 2 months. So huge applause, everyone. That's a big, huge accomplishment. So that was my little story there. I would like to tell you a little bit more about Women's Alliance for Leadership. I'm the founder and president. We have 6 board members, and we've been actively organizing in the community for about 4 years now. So Women's Alliance for Leadership is dedicated to empowering women of LGBT community and their allies. And we provide accessible, so there's the keyword, accessible education and career and leadership development. So we would like to make it accessible. There are so many great organizations out there, but our focus is that we want to make it accessible to everyone. So the focus is to increasing the well-being of women and community improvement overall, with efforts to halt inequality and discrimination in our state and nation. So thank you. Absolutely. All right, so please visit our table at the back if you haven't met Patty, our communication director, is at our table right now. And we are continuously seeking speakers and sponsors, board members, volunteers. We need you, and we can make change, and we will bring change. So, thank you. So please sign your name, and so we can contact you. Leave your business card. Tell us what topic you would like to come and speak on. Also, we do have awesome stickers, if we still have any, to sell. We have awesome paintings, and we have awesome international clothing all the way from Morocco. Thanks, Mom. So we have a great program coming up, and an awesome program, and awesome speakers that we have for today. And we would really appreciate it if you would stick around till the end, so that when we'll have our raffle drawings. And thanks to Connie Paredes, who brought in the gifts and prizes. So we appreciate it. All right, so I would like to introduce Rosemarie Rieger.
Thank you. And just like Mia said, we're really excited that you all came out today to celebrate International Women's Day with us here. And we think you will really program that we put together for you. We have some great speakers. Sorry, it's cutting in and out. Is that better? And so like Mia said, my name is Rosemarie Rieger, and I'm an organizer with North Texas Jobs with Justice. Jobs with Justice has been around in Dallas for about 24 years now, and we build coalitions, community groups, faith groups, environmental groups, students, you name it, and we come together and fight for economic justice. Yeah! We're part of a national organization with member coalitions in 24 states and about 46 cities across the U.S., mainly on the two coasts. We're the only Jobs with Justice in Texas. And we work to improve the living standards and living quality for all workers, organized and one of the campaigns we have been working on this last year has been raising the minimum wage for workers, right? Oh, you know, it has a loose connection.
You don't play with these. I had an off switch here.
Okay.
There you go.
Down here, see, it's kind of loose, yeah.
There you go. How's that?
All right, great. Is this better? Yeah. Okay. So why would we team up and put on a women's event? Well, as many of you might know, women represent nearly 2/3 of all minimum wage workers, and nearly 4 out of 10 female minimum wage workers are women of color. So if you're working full-time on minimum wage, that is $7.25 an hour, then that means you earn about $14,500 a year, and that is more than $4,000 below the poverty line for a family of 3. So there's really no way you can survive on that. And the average woman earns only 77 cents for every dollar a man earns. And for black women, that drops down to 64 cents for every dollar. And for Hispanic women, it's 54 cents. So as you can see, raising the minimum wage to $10.10 an hour, that could really boost the earnings for nearly 28 million workers, and 55% of those are women. So it seems like we have a long way to go, and I don't want to sound after Mia's pep talks, make things sound so dire, but things are looking up in Texas, aren't they? We have some strong, progressive females. We have some strong candidates running for various offices this year, so it's going to be good. And here at this very event, we have some exciting progressive female speakers who aren't afraid to challenge the system and to stand up for change, and you will hear them shortly. But the next question would be, how can we be a part of this potential change, and how can we make sure women's lives improve? Well, I have the answer. I know it's the Holy Grail. And the answer is organize. We need to organize. And that's really the reason we put this event together, was that we can get together, exchange, learn from each other, and organize. And for that reason also, we'd like you to check out the tables in the back. And there are different groups here. Get informed, find like-minded people, vote, right? We've got voter registration, so please register and become a part of the discussion for change. So if you need food or drinks, please get those. I hope you got a program also, and you can follow along. If you need restrooms, they're to the left outside here of the elevator that we covered with the whiteboard, I think. If you don't find the elevator, it's behind the whiteboard. And the restrooms are just to the left of that. And so now it's time for me to introduce our first speaker. And if you look in your program, we have a bit of history on this day for you. And there's a tradition of celebrating International Women's Day all over the world. And there is a history of women standing up for change, and we want to keep that tradition alive. And that's why I am so honored to introduce to you Becky Muller. She is the, We're excited to have Becky here. She is the president of the Texas American Federation of Labor and the Congress of Industrial Organizations, also known as AFL-CIO. She oversees the legislative, the political, educational, and the community service programs for over 220,000 members here in Texas. Becky is the first woman to hold statewide elected office in the Texas AFL-CIO, and she broke through this glass ceiling, this barrier, in 2003 when she became the Secretary-Treasurer, which is the highest office. And before Before coming to the Texas AFL-CIO, Becky was president of the Communication Workers of America, Local 6137, that's in Corpus Christi, and there she represented workers at SBC, which is now AT&T. And she's held many different positions and capacities before or since joining the company and the union in 1967. She is no stranger to the struggles of working people, especially working women, and you'll find her in the front line of demonstrations and rallies, even here in Dallas. She's been there supporting community events and inspiring union women, all women, to do the same. And Becky is also a mother, a stepmother, and a grandmother. And so I thank you for coming and sharing your wisdom with us. Thank you.
Can I put this in his holder?
Yeah, I'll drop it. That should work.
If I don't hang that up, I'm going to drop it. I know how I am. My hands get to flying, and it'll be over there if I hold on to it. So, well, thank you for coming today, and welcome to this gathering of activist women, women who don't sit and complain. I know if you just sat home and sat and complained, you wouldn't be out here today. So we're so happy that you're here. But you know, we can do something about the injustices that are heaped on us as women, injustices that are heaped on our families, and even injustice that are heaped on the men in our lives, because they are out there and we need to take care of them as well. If women are treated unfairly, our men are treated unfairly as well. If women are treated unfairly, our children are absolutely treated unfairly as well. I also bring greetings from the Secretary-Treasurer of the Texas AFL-CIO, John Patrick, and our staff. They would be here today, except they're in Austin celebrating another women's victory. Celia Israel was elected a state representative out of Austin, Texas, in a special election, a hard-fought special election. Labor block walked in that election. Top block walked with us in that election. I see some top T-shirts out there. And we won that race for special election, and she faces election again in November, of course. But they're where they should be there, and that's celebrating Celia Israel's victory. Let me just tell you a little bit about my history. She mentioned I started being a union member, I think you said something about 1967. So I was 6 when I started working, as you can tell then, because that has been quite some time ago. But let me just tell you a little bit about my path to activism. And I don't talk about this story too much, but we're all friends here. When I was 16, I ran off to Mexico and got married. That was the summer between my sophomore and junior year. And so I go to enroll in school, which after my parents, lectured me about the stupid thing I had done, I said, well, I'm going to go to school. Don't worry, I'm going to finish school. So I go to register, and the school board in Corpus Christi, Texas, says, no, you're a bad influence on girls in this school, and we will not let you go to school. Another lady I met then, a young girl like myself, Lupita, was having the same issue. She had also gotten married very young and was wanting to go to school. So that was my first foray into activism. And that's also when I realized that when women work together, Lupita and Becky, you can get things done. So we didn't have to go all the way to the school board meeting. However, we did have to lobby on our behalf. We had to raise hell at the school board offices to get in, and we did. We were enrolled in September in school, and we finished together. In fact, I still see her. She works in the bank in Corpus, so every now and then we still reminisce about that. But activism and your path to activism sometimes starts in various ways. Sometimes it's your own issues that you advocate for yourself, and sometimes it's for others. But we are advocates in this life. We are activists in this life, and we must keep that up. The other thing about a little bit about my work history, I filed a grievance about 1973 because then my employer would not let me test for a man's job. It's a man's job. They wouldn't let me test, and I felt it was because I was a female. They said it was because I had missed a day and a half work in 12 months. They wouldn't allow me to test. So I call this my $1 million grievance. Now, I don't still have those $1 million. I wish I did. But probably over 35 years of working it was probably about $800,000 that I got difference, because it was the highest job in that collective bargaining agreement. I won that grievance. They had to test me. I passed the test, and I got on the job. I was one of two females in that workplace for a long time, and we, as you might imagine, the managers were all men as well, and us two ladies got some of the worst assignments. But we also banded together, and we said, we're going to do this, even if they're sending us to the nastiest bars in town to work on phone systems or pay phones or whatever it was that particular day. We're going to do that work. We're not going to be afraid of that work. Well, now that I'm a grandmother, I say, ooh, I probably shouldn't have done that. I wouldn't want my granddaughters going over there. But we did it. We persevered. We did the bad work, and then we finally got the good work. So here again, two women banded together and said, we are going to do this work. So I guess that's kind of my path to advocating for myself. I was also a local officer. I did everything from being the janitor of the Communications Workers Hall, clean up the bathrooms, empty the trash cans, to being the president. I ran for the Coastal Bend Labor Council presidency, and you know what my campaign slogan was? This 7:30 meeting is going to start at 7:30, because women who were going to that meeting had to pay babysitters when they went to the meetings, and we couldn't afford 3 or 4 hours. We needed to go to the meeting and get the meetings done and get out of there. So women's issues are different. Back then, you had to say, will you babysit your own damn kids? No, that shouldn't be, but that's what happened. So you hired babysitters if you wanted to be a woman activist in the 70s. That's just the way it was. I hope it's different now. Is it different now? Do your husband support you in your activism? That's good. That's as it should be, and I'm proud to hear that. That's how it should be. But I bet you didn't come here for a history lesson. I just like to digress. But I think we also need to be aware that history does repeat itself if you're not vigilant. Who in this room remembers when most employers, and you got to have gray hair like me to remember this, when most employers made you leave the payroll when you were about 6 months pregnant? Some of you do. So UAW, I know, was instrumental in the fight for that injustice to be resolved. Communication workers and machinists, I think, were the three main unions back then, along with many of our community partners from back in the 60s and the 70s. But what we did within CWA, a bunch of us banded together at state CWA caucus meetings, and we said, well, let's just don't tell them we're pregnant when we first get pregnant. They don't know when you're 6 months, so let's just don't tell them. So all across this state, women, although, we're excited and we wanted to go tell everyone we were going to have a baby, we didn't, because then we would have to leave the payroll at 6 months. So we kind of kept those secrets, and then before long, that changed. The policy didn't really change, but they just looked the other way, and then women stopped having to go off on an unpaid leave of absence. We had to pick up our health insurance at that period of time while you were on that unpaid leave of absence. And you also lost service towards your pension in most groups. So it really was an injustice. The settlement on that issue was that, and I'm going to simplify it because it's so old, but if a man can go have a hernia operation and be paid for that, or a vasectomy even, then a woman should be able to go have a baby, and then while she's recovering, that's a disability, she should be paid for that and not lose service towards her pension and not have to pick up her insurance if the men don't have to pick up theirs. So that's one of the changes that women make. The only reason I go back in history so much is, you know what? Some of these things that we thought were resolved a long time ago kind of are resurfacing. I think that would be a very, very hard one for them to go back and take away. But you know what? They've taken away some other stuff that ought to have been hard to take away too. So we need to be vigilant, and we need to make sure that we remember what happened years ago, what the men and women before us resolved for us. And we must hold those things sacred and make sure that we don't let them go back. Do y'all remember when contraceptives weren't on the insurance programs for most employers? Now, that was revisited last year, wasn't it? They don't want to pay for contraceptives under some folks under ACA. So that's one of the things we won in collective bargaining agreements probably in the early 70s. It's back. So, you know, we need to be careful and watch out for the anti-women issues that come up. You know, women weren't allowed male jobs for years. Now we have women in union apprenticeship programs. We have women who are electricians in the building trades. We have plumbers and pipe fitters. They're apprentices in those. We have aircraft mechanics who are women now. That's as it should be, because we all have a different skill set. You shouldn't have been denied those jobs just for your gender, but for many years we were. And I'm glad to see that it's different now. The men who run some of these plumbers and pipe fitters and electricians local accept women in their ranks now. It wasn't always that way. Times have changed. We have enlightened the labor movement, and we have women who are supporting their families equally with the men who they always thought that was their domain. And now those jobs are being shared. So that's a segue to my next remarks. Let's talk about today and leave the history behind. The best way for wage equality in this environment is to be covered by a union contract. Collective bargaining is the great equalizer on wage equity. That's how you get wage equity. Unfortunately, though, there's a lot of women and men, but there's a lot of women who don't have the luxury of being covered by a collective bargaining agreement. One study I read just this week said that the typical woman makes $15.10 an hour, and the typical male makes 18 and some change. I've forgotten exactly what it is. But that wage gap affects people at all levels, not just the ones at McDonald's, but all the way up to the boardroom. I bet there's some women CEOs who are not being paid what their male counterparts were before they got the job, or maybe even across the street at another Wall Street firm. I bet the women are not paid the same thing as the men are. So it's not just a low-wage earner issue. It's a women's issue all across this country. Every occupation, no matter how professional you might think you are, if the men are getting paid more than you are, you're still getting screwed, Miss Professional. So we need to be vigilant about that. That's why we're so proud of Representative Sinfronia Thompson out of Houston, Texas. If you don't know her, you're missing a dynamic woman. And Senator Wendy Davis, who filed, these two women filed, fought for, and got passed the Lilly Ledbetter Pay Act. And that would mean that you could go to Texas court for remedy. You don't have to go to the federal court, to a special lawyer who's licensed to practice in federal court. You could go to state court for the injustice, even if you didn't discover the wage disparity for some time. It was passed in both the House and the Senate. It got to the governor's desk, and guess what happened? Your governor, if you're from Texas, your governor, Rick Perry, vetoed that legislation after they worked to get it passed. And you know, they had to have Republican support to get that passed. It was a male-female thing because women don't run the Senate, women don't run the House of Representatives. Democrats certainly don't run the Senate or the House of Representatives. So bipartisan work by gender people worked on that legislation, and it was a sad day when your governor vetoed that legislation. But I can tell you this, when we have a governor named Wendy Davis sitting in that chair, that legislation will be passed. It will be signed. What we have to worry about is these recent primary elections and some of the changes that were made. We may have to work a little harder than we did this last time to get that passed again in the House and the Senate, but hopefully y'all are all signing an email to sign up here, and we will make sure that we invite you to our office as we're lobbying on the Lilly Ledbetter Act in 2015. The session starts mid-January, and we'll be in touch with some of you here. So since I'm trying to stay in the current time frame, and you know I'm an old woman and I just keep going back to history, but some of the other issues that some of our members sometimes think are not our issues, some of your friends may not think they're your issues either, is the food stamp issue, SNAP. Food stamp is our issue. We have, fortunately, those of us with a union contract, we can probably feed our children. As you can tell, I eat plenty. But there are folks out there who are going hungry. My granddaughter told me, my 12-year-old really shamed me the other day. I said, "I'm starving, sugar, let's go eat something." And she said, "Granny, that's a terrible thing to say. You're not starving. You may be hungry, but there are kids in this city who are starving. There are kids here who are starving. There are kids in this state, in this country, that are starving." Wow, she shamed me real good. But these families have to make the choice. Do they buy food? Do they buy nutritious food? Do they just buy some food to fill the bellies of these children and themselves? Or do they pay for heat in this winter that we've had? Do they pay for prescriptions for themselves? Do they take a half a dose of a prescription so they can buy food for their children? These are all issues that are out there for women and their families. Again, some say these are not our issues, but a hungry child cannot study. A hungry child cannot learn. A sick adult cannot hold on to a job. And the circle goes on and on. These are our women's issues because they're our family issues. We can lament all day long about the injustice in society today, or we can all get busy. We can work to attract jobs, 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 and I mean good jobs. We need to be volunteering for city boards, commissions, county boards, commissions, running for office in those as well. But there are plenty of boards out there where you would have a say as a woman. You would have a say on what we need to be doing. Workforce development boards are one example. There's a labor spot on every workforce development board, and I think there's 28 in the state. Get on the list with your labor council to be the labor rep on that board, because that's when you decide how some of your taxpayer money is spent and on what jobs. Did y'all hear about the noodle plant in San Antonio, Texas? I think it was Maruchan Noodles. Your governor, Perry, lured them to the state on one of his job tours and was going to give them some taxpayer money to relocate for minimum wage jobs for $7.25 an hour. Well, a number of organizations, including the AFL-CIO, said, no, we're not going to pay folks to move into town to bring minimum wage jobs. We need good jobs, jobs with a future, jobs with health insurance, jobs where you can support a family, not a $7.25 an hour job. That's why we need you on those workforce boards to make sure that we voice that often and we voice it loudly. We can also work to increase the minimum wage, which my friend Rosemarie already mentioned. In order to have families who can buy food, buy medicine, you can't do it on $7.25 an hour. You really can't even do it on $10.10 an hour, but that's a step in the right direction. Can you imagine $14,500? I hadn't done the math, Rosemarie, till you said that. I hadn't done the math in a long, long time. Can you imagine even supporting just yourself on $14,500? Much less add a child, add a husband. How in the world do you live on $7.25 an hour? Well, let me tell you, you don't live. You're existing. You're existing on $7.25 an hour. So we need to all work for that. We're talking about a state law for a minimum wage in Texas. They've done it in some other states, and we're going to do that in Texas. So here again, we're going to call on you to come help us in Austin. When we get that legislation filed, we'll be going to some of your friends to get it filed, and we'll need you to help us get that passed. So get ready to work in Austin starting about January 15th next year. We know we can pass the Lilly Ledbetter Act again if everyone in this room, plus all your friends and family and everyone across the country works on that as well. The other important piece that's not at the state level but is important to women is we can work to pass immigration reform, comprehensive immigration reform. Can you imagine if you were here, yes, not legally, but you're here, and your husband is working and you have a couple of kids and you find out that your mother in Mexico is very, very ill and you have to make the choice. Do I go see my mother who's gravely ill, knowing that I might not be able to get back to my children? What a decision to make. We have got to stop the deportations and pass comprehensive immigration reform. That is a woman's issue. We can work to eliminate the problem on sexual harassment, especially in low-wage jobs. The intimidation is so serious there. If you're desperate and you're working for $7.25 an hour, you're probably hesitant to report that sexual harassment. We've got to stop that. We've got to stop the attacks on public pensions. You know, how many in this room are public employees? Work for state, county, city, teacher? You know, all your life you have left money on the table for wages, because you don't make what folks in the private sector do generally, for the promise of a pension. And now they want to rip that promise away from you and try to take away your pension. That is the Arnolds, the John Arnold of Enron, the John Arnold who is fighting right here in Dallas, Texas for public schools, the John Arnold who would like to take away every firefighter, teacher, state, city, county employee's pension, and then they want to manage your money. Oh, that makes you feel real warm and fuzzy, right? You know what happened when he was helping Enron with their money. So he wants to manage your pension money now? Oh yeah, give us a break. So we need to hold on to public employee pensions, and that was a fight in the last session and will be a fight in the upcoming session. That's women's issues. One of the sad ones that we also worked on this last session is human trafficking. We can be vigilant on human trafficking. We need to be in our communities, eyes and ears, looking and listening for people who are being abused and manipulated and taken advantage of. Young girls and young boys, both citizens of Texas and immigrants here, are servants to perverts, people with unusual taste in life, and those with money. We must stop human trafficking. They are people too. That is a woman's issue. We can educate our members on these issues. You're not all union members in here, but you're members of your association, your groups, but definitely our union members. We've got to educate them on that. We need to educate our children on what we're doing and why we're here today. We've got to stop the attacks on women's issues. We can't go back anymore. Now, the next part of my remarks may be a little controversial, but I always feel like I have to say this. The AFL-CIO at the national level, and the Texas AFL-CIO, and the Dallas AFL-CIO, and many of our affiliated unions don't have a position on choice. Not pro, not con. We're not for, we're not against. That's not a labor issue. We're about jobs and fair treatment and equal pay. It's a personal decision. That's what the AFL has said, and that's what we leave that to groups like you to work on that issue. It's between a woman, her doctor, her family, and her faith. But with that being said, I was sickened last section, 2011, and I was sickened in 2013 with regard to what they did to women's health yet again. Leave the choice part of the filibuster over here for just a minute. But look at the women who now have no access to preventive cervical cancer screenings. Those clinics are closed. They're gone. They don't have access to breast cancer screenings. Those clinics are closed. 2 more closed this week in the Rio Grande Valley, I understand. That's not an issue to do with choice. That's an issue to do with cold-hearted legislatures who want to be in your business, and they have no business in your business. I have a longtime friend who, she's the typical, I think, displaced homemaker. Until she was about 48, she was married to an executive. She supported everything he did. She washed his socks and folded his underwear, you know. She was a full-time homemaker and mother. Then the divorce happens. Well, she lost her health care insurance. She had no job. She had always been supportive of him, so she had few transferable skills. She did find a job with health care and was so elated because she had breast cancer, a terrible history of breast cancer in her family. Well, she was working 40 hours. They cut her to 36. They cut her to 32. They cut her to 28. She no longer had health care insurance at any cost. Not that they paid for or that she could pay for. She just had no health care. So we referred her to Planned Parenthood. She got her regular breast cancer screenings at some of the clinics. And then she turned 65 last year. Hooray, she says. I'm done. I now have Medicare. Now I can take care of my health. But she was so angered at what they had done during the legislative session because she said, I got mine. I was able to go to the clinics, and I was able to get my cervical cancer screenings, and I was able to get my breast cancer screenings. But these other women don't have that now. They have jerked that away from them. So I have mine now because I'm on Medicare, which they're trying to take away too, as you know, and Social Security. But she said, I have mine, but what about these other poor women who are just like me? More displaced homemakers who will not have any health insurance. They now can't even go to the clinics to get work. That is a woman's issue. In my life as a union activist, as a woman activist, I've seen some great things happen. I was ecstatic about many of them. I look back on history and I think about the suffrage movement. You know, we take that for granted. Women were put in jail for the right to vote. Women were, you've heard about the water stuff where they poured gallons of water down you till you were ill. Women were mistreated in jail as they fought for your right to go vote. So tell me, what in the hell is wrong with some of our women who don't go vote today? Does it have to be taken completely away from us before we get serious about the right to vote? Well, hold on to your pantyhose, chickie, because this voter ID takes away women's right to vote. But today, you know, I know I need to be positive, but you know, sometimes I just find it hard to be positive when I think about what happens in Washington and Austin. But today, let's celebrate the women. Let's celebrate the women and celebrate the men who support us. Let's celebrate the gains that we've made in our jobs, in our collective bargaining agreement if you're lucky enough to be in a union where you have a contract. We have family leave now that we didn't have 20 years ago. Then look down the street, though. I drove through McDonald's earlier because I was having a low sugar attack. Okay, the women at McDonald's, they're working hard. Those young kids, men and women, are working hard for low wages and poor treatment. Look down at the streets at the ones who are ill, the women who are on the streets ill, have no access to health care, no hope. They have no hope. If they're ill, they're going to stay ill and get more ill. Look at your friend who's struggling on minimum wage. How in the world do they do it? How do they wake up in the mornings knowing that they are not going to be able to feed their children a nutritious meal that night? Look at your mama. You know, we got some mamas who worked all their life, have no pension. They're existing on Social Security, and fortunately they have Medicare. But that's all they have. We need to take care of our elderly. If you're lucky, you too will be elderly one day. Our work is not done, and I don't think it ever will be done. We are our brother's keeper after all. Nothing has changed. Listen to the children, feed the children, clothe the children, even if they want to drug test the mother who's on welfare and food stamps for drugs. It's not that 5-year-old kid's fault that her mother has made a bad choice and is on drugs. Let's feed the children. Listen to the elderly. Like I said, if you're lucky, you too will be old one day. Then listen to the Tea Party rhetoric. That should scare the crap out of you. They want less government. They want less government until they want to govern you. They want religious freedoms. Oh, wait. No, that's until they find out that you're not of their faith, that they want these religious freedoms. Did you see the story last week, right before the election, about, and I can't remember which Republican primary it was in, but there was a Southern Baptist and a Methodist running in the Republican primary, and the Southern Baptist, and this is beyond my comprehension, the Southern Baptist says that Methodist is not conservative enough. You know why? They allow women to be ministers in the Methodist Church. Now, when two Protestant groups are going after each other, religious freedoms, does that take it a little too far for even us to comprehend that? I saved the article. I said, you know what, in 5 years, they're not going to believe this. They're not going to believe that this really was an issue in a primary election in Northeast Texas. But they want religious freedoms for themselves, and they want you to worship their God, and only their way of religion. So what is our action plan? Register your family to vote. register your children to vote. Yes, even register your church members to vote. Educate our members, your members, on issues affecting workers, affecting women, affecting children, affecting construction jobs, affecting good jobs, affecting minimum wage. Golly bum, we have a lot to work on. Become an activist or an organizer, whichever word you choose to use. Train your kids up to be an activist. Train your kids up to be an organizer. Explain to your man you are an activist and you're trying to protect him and his mama. My most proud day was when my daughter was graduating high school and a federal judge who we had worked for in Nueces County for a county judge, district county judge races, came back and came to her graduation and said, you know, Christy, you turned out pretty good considering you were raised at the Union Hall. You were raised at the CWA Hall. Take your kids to work with you. You know, every day in April is Take Your Kid to Work Day. You know what? Union women have been taking their kids to work with them for 50 years. We take them to the picket line. We take them to work at the food bank. We take them to work at the Union Hall. They're in infant seats on the floor when we're doing phone banks. They're block walking with us. They're sorting mail by zip code. You know what? Take your kids to work with you if you're an activist, and they will appreciate what you're doing, and it is wonderful to raise an activist kid, believe me. So take your child to work every day that you're volunteering for your union, for your organization, whatever you're working on. Take your kid with you, let them know what you're doing, and let's all become born-again activists. Let's stop the nonsense. I'm about to wrap this up. I know I'm out of time, but I just got to point out a few women running for office or running for re-election for office that we need to be aware of. Libby Willis from Senate District 10, trying to replace Wendy Davis over there. She won the primary, doesn't have a runoff, and that is wonderful. She needs help come about August, September, October, November. We have Kim Gonzalez in South Texas, and I'm sure y'all aren't from that far south here today, but Kim Gonzalez is a breath of fresh air down in South Texas. Crazy district that they drew for that, crazy district. We need to be working for her. Up here, Susan Motley and Carol Donovan are both dynamic young women. And of course, Tony Rose, who we're working on re-election in November. Then Yvonne Davis. I have to talk about Yvonne Davis because she puts her energy where her mouth is. She worked with us on a Buy America piece of legislation. It was a good piece of legislation, but you know, us women have figured out, you know, you can't always go in the front door. Sometimes you got to go in the side door or the back door to get what you want. Well, she was afraid that the governor was going to veto that if she got it passed. So she also put some legislation in the water bill, which she knew he could not veto the water bill because we had to have the water bill. So she got the Buy America legislation passed all right. The governor vetoed it as she thought, but he did not veto the water bill. So Yvonne Davis is a master at working things to our benefit. Tell her thank you when you see her next. Then we also have Nicole Collier from Fort Worth. We have Lee Bailey right here in Dallas. All bright young women. Whoops, can't read my own writing here. Oh, Houston is just chock full of dynamic young and old women, people my age on down. And then in Southeast Texas, Susan Chris, who's running for state representative on a seat that Craig Island left. You know, Craig Island was such a worker representative and a community-based organization representative. After the hurricane hit Galveston, he worked to get the hospital back open and not have it contracted out. We think Susan Chris will work in the same manner that he did. So we have some great women we're going to work with this year, and then they'll be in Austin. So when we ask you to go with us to Austin to lobby, your job will be much easier if we do this work here. I know that we can elect Senator Davis, governor of Texas, if we all pull together. I know we can elect Senator Letitia Vanderpute, and if you got to get her to tell you her whole name. I love the way she says it. Senator Letitia Rosalinda San Miguel Vanderpute. I think that's right. For Lieutenant Governor of Texas, she is going to be a step in the right direction as well. I know this is not a political function, but you know what? Women's issues are so tied to politics. You can't talk about women's issues without talking about the election. So I think we can get these women elected. I think we will have a better government in Austin. Can you imagine if a Wendy Davis is the governor? Some of you might even be appointed to a board like Ann Richards did. Ann Richards said, "My appointments will reflect the face of Texas," and they did. Blacks, browns, women. I was the boxing commissioner. Can you believe that? She appointed me to a commission that oversaw boxing and auctioneers and a number of other things. So I was the boxing commissioner for Texas. I love that. Don't know nothing about boxing, but I did know the other stuff, though. But I think a Wendy Davis as governor will have this state looking like the face of Texas. She hasn't used those words, but I know Wendy and I know Leticia, and I think they will reach out to their communities, and we will have folks who work for the best of Texas, not for the best of big business or those with single Tea Party interest. So thanks for letting me come today. Thanks for putting this event together. I know it's a lot of work, and I appreciate everything that you've done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Becky. That was really inspiring and good to hear the history. So we know what this builds on, and we're aware, like you said, that we don't want to let certain things repeat themselves again. So in order to keep in time with our schedule, I'd like to introduce our next speakers. And they are two of our newest friends at Jobs with Justice, and we're so excited to have them and to work with them. And I'll start with Aimee. Oh, lights out. Aimee, Josiane, Twagirumukiza, sorry, I tried to practice it. But yeah, Aimee Josiane is a Rwandanese activist, and she came to us by the way of Atlanta, Georgia. And she moved here last fall, and she's been active here in the community. She recently graduated from Georgia State University and participated in the AFL-CIO Union Summer Program as an intern with the Amalgamated Transit Union. She was also the co-chair of Fulton County Green Party in Georgia, and she has worked for racial and economic justice with other groups as well. And next, I'd like to introduce to you Danisha Powell. And Danisha Powell is also new to Dallas. She came by the way of Atlanta, so yay, we're getting all the good people from Atlanta. There she organized with Occupy Our Homes, and yeah, good organization. There's more. She's done a lot. Moral Mondays in Georgia. She's been with Atlanta Jobs with Justice. Yay. And she's also done work on HIV/AIDS awareness and prevention. And currently she's organizing with Global Climate Convergence, which is a new national coalition that works on social justice issues. And so Aimee and Denechia are a power couple, and they're going to give us the next presentation together on using social media for social change. So thank you and welcome. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for having us here. This is a really great crowd. Loved your speech. Thank you so much. So Rosemarie asked us to do a presentation about social media, and so it's not, Sorry, am I really loud? So it's not just about women in particular, but of course, social media is really crucial in organizing around women's issues. So I think we should, turn the lights down a little bit. And let's get going. We'll try to make this not completely boring and interactive, and there'll be space for questions and time for questions or to hear your experiences with social media. So we all know that a lot of organizing happened before the internet. Lots of movements have been successful and amazing without the power of the internet. So just wanted to think about, how did organizers use media before we had the internet? So, there was lots of different things: public radio, flyers, zines, which is like, handmade magazines, brochures, public access TV. What other media did organizers use before, we had the internet? Yes, and we still use those, yep. Phone trees. Phone trees, yep. So phone banking and so I just want to emphasize that face-to-face organizing is still so important. We can't just rely on being, internet activists or armchair activists. We still need that face-to-face connection, definitely. Because this organizing communities and has been going on for so long without the internet. So it's possible, but the internet just makes it, easier, and people have more access to it, and it's, it's just a different way of organizing that is really important. So what exactly is online organizing? So this is kind of like a boring definition, but basically it's, building a movement online using social networking sites, using social media, disseminating information, educating people, connecting with people, building relationships with people, and doing this all online. So that is kind of a basic definition of what online organizing is. So Aimee is going to start talking about why should community and labor organizers use social media.
So the most obvious reason to use social media is that for a lot of social networking sites, it's free publicity. It's a way to get, your group name, your mission, everything to reach a mass, virtually, uncapped number of people for free. With the exception of ads, etc. It allows us to build relationships with folks who aren't in our direct community, folks who we aren't seeing, who aren't in proximity to us, and build on those. Enables us to put public pressure on institutions, and you'll see that a little bit when Nisha goes through the case study. It's a very big tool because, especially if you have campaigns, you're able to use social media to be to increase visibility and use that as a visual tool. It's a popular education tool. A lot of the issues that Becky talked about. Hello? Okay, and that we all encounter, we aren't necessarily educated about. Oh, this is kind of getting crazy. All right, there are that. Okay, is there? We'll work with what we get. That we aren't educated about, and popular education is a way to for folks who are in our communities to come forward and all be leaders and all be teachers, because women, oppressed women, are the experts on our own situations, and so we're the best folks to put just out there. And again, unlimited outreach potential, and it's a recruiting tool. There are a lot of asks that can be made through social media. There are a lot of ways of, collecting contacts, of getting people invested in movements that matter. So definitely an important tool.
I just wanted to highlight a few kind of notable online organizing campaigns. This is definitely not all of them, but these are ones that have really stood out to me in, the past year or so. The Making Change at Walmart campaign, the different fast food workers campaigns that are going on. Both of those have really, I feel like they've been pretty innovative in the labor movement. They've done a really good job of using social media to put public pressure on these huge corporations, and also, kind of shaming them and to saying, making the public think about, how do people live on $7.25 an hour, and building those narratives. Like, these are, they're not just young kids anymore working at fast food places and at Walmart. It's adults with families, and just bringing those narratives and creating those narratives on social media. I think they've been really successful. Also, the Dream Defenders. So this is community organizing. It's undocumented youth leading their own movement, centering it around their issues, and they've also been really good with social media and putting pressure on their government and their repressive policies and trying to get their do the right. So I wanted to ask if there was any. Second. So, is there any online organizing campaigns y'all can think of that really have struck you as really powerful, that you think have been successful? Can y'all think of any?
It's an organization concerned with modern slavery and human trafficking. Bring awareness to human trafficking. They put together some videos that are very powerful.
Yeah, videos are awesome. Like, you see it in action. Any other online organizing campaigns that have really struck y'all and been really powerful?
Fight Back Texas. Fight Back Texas.
Fight Back.
Activism, Summer's movement.
Was
They kept things, it's over.
Sure.
These committees can influence the stakeholders on how these laws get implemented, and we can hold them accountable.
okay. Hi. Basically a call to action, and that call to action was basically proliferated online, started in New York, and then just spread all over the nation, and it's still going. Like she pointed out, it hasn't, just because that Occupy moment is over. All of those social networks still exist. Can I get the next slide? Okay.
I'll go with it. Okay, so there are a lot of ways to get your presence online. A website is suggested. We should at least have websites. A professional-looking website isn't hard to create. We now have sites like WordPress that will actually host your website and already have various templates that you can choose from. You don't have to be, online whiz to have this set up. But of course, if you do have the money and you want to get a more sophisticated platform, it's always a good idea to hire a web developer, and it also gets more people in movement jobs, which is always a good idea to kind of get, techie people in movement jobs. Okay.
Okay, so that slide it's disappeared.
Okay, so this is an example of a website that's pretty simple. It's Occupy Our Home's website, which we're using as, the case study for this conversation about social media. So you can see that, the layout's kind of clean. It gives folks different ways to find out more about your organization, to navigate what your organization is about. There's an about section, news where you can have a blog, which we'll talk about later on, events and contact, and then ways for folks to donate to your cause. You can see, I feel like some buttons might be missing or not, but there's a contribute button up here, there's one up there, there's a search engine, ways for folks to connect to your other social media sites. You want to have all of these things on your homepage, and but still have it simple enough that folks won't kind of get overstimulated and overwhelmed and want to leave. So this is just an example of something that's simple but not too simple and allows people to kind of find out about the different aspects of your organization. And then Nisha's going to talk about online petitions.
Yeah, so I think this slide must have been deleted. Just to kind of explain what Occupier Homes Atlanta is. So I was a staff organizer with them. She was a member. So it's a radical housing justice group that fights foreclosure and eviction and advocates for affordable housing. And it was kind of was an offspring of the Occupy movement. And in Atlanta especially, the housing crisis was really bad. And so there was a need for that in the community, which is where Occupier Homes came from. So one tool that Occupier Homes uses is online petitions. I'm sure everyone in here has signed an online petition. And it's just a great tool to collect support, so to say. So people come, they read what it's about, what you're trying to, the petition is going to clearly state what your demand is, and it's going to be targeted towards who you're trying to get, who you're trying to demand whatever you're demanding from. So if it's, you want them to negotiate a deal with you so you can stay in your home, right? So it might be the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, whoever. So this is a good way to collect the contact information. And so you have it all. So when you need to do a call to action, like send an email out, you already have all that contact information compiled and you can just send it out.
And I was also going to use a recent action that Occupier Homes or Homes for All, the nationwide coalition, was a letter petition delivery last month, where different housing justice groups delivered petitions. And I mean, just by having the online petition, we were able to deliver petitions that were over 300 pages. I mean, it's a lot of, thousands and thousands of people, and that's a powerful tool just to be able to go to somebody's office and say, hey, we have this dictionary-sized document to give you, and these are all real people and with messages. So I just wanted to point that out because I thought that was really neat.
Definitely. And so there's different websites you can go to create a petition, or you might have some type of online marketing platform that you purchased that has that capability to do an online petition. So this is an example of one of our petitions. So this is a veteran who was foreclosed on and evicted from his home, but this was a petition to try to save his home. And as you can see, you fill out all your contact information, you say who it's to, who are you trying to, basically fight your battle with, which is Fannie Mae and Green Tree in this case, and what you need. And also, it's good to include video and to do updates on your petition and to have, different links that people can go to. Okay.
All right. Blogging. So the main benefit of blogging is that it's a way for groups, especially progressive groups, to create our own narratives. We don't always have, because we're going against the status quo, we're not always going to get mainstream media to cover our successes, to cover our struggles. And so this is where blogging really helps, because it gives you a platform where you can put your own story forward. If you have a successful event that's not covered, you can put that, force that your supporters, your members, your allies can all access those stories. So yeah, essentially be your own cheerleaders. And again, with a lot of sites like WordPress, the foundation's already there. You just have to figure out, what to put up to celebrate yourself. pictures make a big difference. It always helps to have pictures because, that's what keeps it personal, to know that there are real people behind these organizations, especially if, you start growing. And then another thing to stress too is always, have ways for folks to connect to your other social media sites. In blog posts, that makes a really big difference too, in kind of keeping the whole thing interconnected. Facebook.
All right, so how many people are on Facebook? Almost everybody, wow. So Facebook, surprise, surprise, it's probably the most popular social networking website. If, people have a social networking site, it's probably Facebook. And I kind of liken it to an online newspaper because it has pictures, it has videos, it has articles. Over 1 billion users, most of them in the US. It's a thing that's been going on recently is that people are saying that the demographics are getting older. There's been different studies that say basically that younger people are flocking to other social networks, but I think they're still there. But I think this Facebook would be if you're trying to reach people of all ages, right? So young people, old people, because some of the other social networking sites we'll talk about are kind of not more catered to young people, but more younger people use it. I think it's important when you're choosing what your organization, what kind of social networking site you should, which social networking site you should use. You should try to use the one that you think you're going to reach the audience you're trying to organize, right? And not to spread yourself thin, trying to be on every different social networking site if you don't have the capacity to be. Just focus on the social networking site that you think is going to work best for you, and do it really well. So this is an example of good Facebooking, we'll call it. I'm sure we've all seen memes, which memes are really shareable pictures or videos or whatever, and basically what your hope for memes is for it to go viral, for it to get shared however many times. So this meme is I know the petition that we saw earlier about the veteran being evicted from his home. This is a picture of the eviction. So as you can see, you have a picture. It's kind of telling you the situation that's going on. It has a phone number for you to call. You can call Fannie Mae, and it also has a script. I think it's cut off, but there was a script on here. So basically, it's a picture, it's a call to action, it's a story, it's a narrative, and it had over 2,000 shares. So I think that this was, a successful Facebook post. This is also around the struggle of the homeless veteran, and we call it a light brigade, and there's actually one here in Dallas as well, No More Homeless Vets, and we posted this on Veterans Day, and it had over 600 shares. So I think the best Facebook posts are probably really visual posts that really tell a story. So bad Facebooking. So on the left you see it says, join us at the courthouse now. I didn't post that, by the way. And so it's you don't know where the courthouse is. You don't know why you should be going there. It has one pity like on it. So I think that you're trying to, if you're going to use Facebook, use it right. Tell people. If you're trying to do a call to action, tell people why. Why are you calling these people to action, and where do they need to go, and information, details. And on the right, can you join us today? So you see this guy, you see this Facebook event. But I think what you need to try to do is try to get people to come to the event. And if it just says, can you join us today, then to do what, So those are bad Facebooking moments. So let's talk about Twitter, a Cliff Note version of Facebook. 140 characters or less, so if you have a short attention span, Twitter is good for you. It's popular with younger people, urban residents, and non-whites. And what was that? Okay, time, sorry. Okay, try to get through this quick. So it's for younger people, and it was interesting reading that kind of research, because maybe younger people and people who are urban residents have less time to go on Facebook and read all of that, so they use Twitter. And also, it kind of started this hashtag phenomenon, right? So does everyone know what hashtags are in here? Okay. Can someone, who wants to explain it real quick?
So basically you take a phrase or something that's going on and you put like just outside in front of it. What happens is it allows other people to click on it and see everyone that's having that discussion. For example, I'll make it really fast. On Twitter there was a hashtag and it was called Fast Tell Girls. And basically if you clicked on it, it was a whole discussion about like slut shaming and things like that and how it affected women of color and urban youth.
Yeah, so, and if a lot of people start using the hashtag, it'll start trending. And that basically means that a lot of people are talking about it. Here's just an example of a tweet. You can use, the picture is good, telling a story, telling why we're here at IBM, tweeting at them, tweeting at IBM, using hashtags. And this is at a Moral Monday, Georgia sit-in. Once again, the picture tells a story. We're using hashtags. We're tweeting at people to encourage interaction, because interaction is really important on Twitter. Okay.
Yeah. So for the next two social media outlets, you have Instagram, which is all visual. And again, it's really popular with younger folks, with more people of color, and it's just another way to reach folks. And with Instagram, I mean, you're just basically trying to set up a narrative with your picture, and it might not be the best. I mean, if that's not your demographic, it might not be the best use of your time, but it's definitely worth trying out if you're trying to draw in younger people and people of color. And that's an example of a picture on Instagram.
You want to use a picture that tells a story. Once again, like you have the sign. Walking into this barrel, so it definitely tells a story, I think.
And then Tumblr. I mean, Tumblr is like really, really young folks, okay? Like, and it's a very, very visual site, very visual. So if you're, a good place to put up memes, a good place to put up other images that really create a narrative, and you can kind of see what the flow looks like on Tumblr. So again, if you're trying to appeal to folks visually, Tumblr's a great site, and it'll really pull in younger folks. And with the sites that appeal to young folks, these are also good ways to get young people engaged in the work, because a lot of times they might not feel like, I don't want to sit at a meeting or do this or that. This is a great way, because I mean, young folks are the experts. Things are being developed all the time. So. I'll just go through YouTube and Livestream real quick. YouTube channels, you're all familiar with YouTube. If anyone not familiar with YouTube, okay. So YouTube, I mean, again, benefit of, creating videos that are appealing, that, give people a vision of what your work is. And Livestream is essentially real-time action. It's kind of new. It's was used a lot during the Occupy movement to live stream General Assemblies and stuff. And you do have to have someone who's kind of, skilled at using Livestream, but essentially, it gives you a link that you can share with folks on social media sites, and they can click on it and see exactly what's going on at your event at that moment. So that's the benefit of having it. Let me go to the next one. All right, and then you cover fundraising.
So our social justice movements need money. We can never forget that. So, if you have a website, you can, for a small fee, use websites like WePay and PayPal to get donations through there, crowdfunding sites. You might already have some kind of online marketing platform that already has a fundraising tool with it. It's just important to let people know what you're doing and what their money is going to go towards, and not to be afraid to ask. and that's Occupy Your Homes. And you see it has a video, suggested donations, donor list, kind of tells the mission, and if you could go further down, and it kind of tells what we're trying to accomplish. So give people like numbers and goals and stuff like that so they know what their money is going towards. All right, so that is the end, and I don't know if we have time for any questions or anything like that.
Thank you. How about we're going to take a 10-minute break, and so if you do have questions, maybe you can pull Denechia and Aimee aside and ask them for more information. But let's give them a hand for break. Yeah, that was really great. I have a lot to learn. Wow.
5-minute break.
Okay, so Mia's giving me the signal. We need to cut our break short to just 5 minutes. So if you need a restroom break or take a look at the tables, there's a bit of food left. 5 minutes, and then we have our presentation, our song presentation.
This is William, hopefully your favorite videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like it, please leave comments below, or like, follow, or subscribe to us and get notices of all our videos. We love it, even when you call.